Now, the conference is hosted by the Australian Workforce and Productivity Agency and the Industry Skills Council. And I'd like to welcome to the stage both Mr. Philip Bullock, the Chair of the agency, and John Vines, Chair of the Innovation and Business Skills Council, to welcome you all to this second joint conference that they've hosted. Would you please give them a welcome?
Thank you, Kerry, and thank you to Donald for that very warm welcome to country. And I'd like to also pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land and their elders past and present. It really is a great pleasure to be able to welcome you here today and to thank you very much for giving us 2 days of your very valuable time. I think we'd also like to recognise that many of you have travelled from interstate. We have every state and territory, and indeed New Zealand, represented here today. And I think given the fact we have very tight travel budgets generally in Australia, this underlines the commitment that both you have to these topics, but also the importance of the topics. I'd also like to have a special welcome to the Senator, the Honourable Chris Evans, not just for his participation here in the conference, but his ongoing leadership and commitment to driving the skills agenda here in Australia. I'd also like to acknowledge our co-host, the Industry Skills Council, for the ongoing critical work that they play in the system here in Australia. And also importantly, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues at the agency board, a very committed and very capable group of people who are not averse to rolling up their sleeves when required. I have to say that for many of us, the future of work and our views of the future of work range at times from great optimism to, in some cases, a sense of uncertainty. Sometimes we think about jobs, we think of the future as just simply jobs to pay the bills, to feed the family, right through to developing a career and indeed leaving an inheritance. These views are clearly personal, and as you're well aware, they're influenced by our parents, our education, where we were born, and in fact, the industry from which we come from. And I think intuitively we have this understanding that what we were doing yesterday and what was successful yesterday may not be what creates success tomorrow. And in fact, I'm always reminded of Andy Grove, from the former CEO of Intel, when he talked about only the paranoid survive. In fact, he was simply saying we cannot afford to be complacent. And clearly the fact that you're here means that you're not complacent, and I can assure you the agency is not complacent. We are correctly informed that we have a great opportunity through the proximity to Asia and also through things like the avenues that technology open for us. But yet, when I talk to people, I find that at times we all feel somewhat exposed and somewhat lacking in confidence just to deal with the day-to-day pressures of our workplace. We do have a strong economy and we do have low unemployment, but at the same time we have industries and organisations who are in rapid restructure. Opportunities, thankfully, continue to emerge. Sometimes they're in places that 10 years ago we couldn't pronounce the names of, or they're in industries and occupations that simply didn't exist. And this is the world that we have to look forward to in the next 10 years. These are not easy challenges, and success will take many forms. For some, it simply could be a growing and sustainable economy. For others, it may be a greener, cleaner economy. Now, this conference, as Kerry's indicated, will focus on some of these hard decisions and challenges. And clearly, it may make us feel a little bit uncomfortable. But it's also clear that Australia's future will depend in a large part to the ability of Australia to manage and enhance the talent we have. This is in part why we've brought together both global and domestic speakers who hopefully will give us those insights from a global perspective, but at the same time, we want you to go away feeling you have practical things to do tomorrow, or should I say, the next day when you go back into your organisation. Our greatest opportunity for productivity clearly lies in the workplace. And I was reminded of Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, because he clearly believed this when he said, the best companies now know that real and limitless productivity comes from challenged, enhanced and excited teams. This raises productivity incrementally, not incrementally I should say, but by multiples. We need to leave these 2 days not just knowing more about some of the global things that were impacting us, but I believe we need to take away a personal action plan. What are the things that we are going to do? You've invested 2 days of your time. This is significant. I am optimistic, and despite the occasional setbacks, I truly believe we have a skills and education system that's ranked highly in the world. And as long as we remain in the upper echelons of these systems globally, we will continue to produce the people we need to lead us in the future. And that's why I'm very pleased to co-host here with John Vines. John has had the ability and has committed a large part of his working life to improving the skills and education systems here in Australia. Many of you may not know that John was also the Deputy Chair of the Carpin Report back in 1995, which was an iconic report looking at management leadership and the impact of technology, its impact on productivity. Maybe my background in technology kind of merges together. Hence, I think John is well able to represent the Industry Skills Councils here today, and it's my pleasure to thank you, welcome you, but also introduce John Vines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Senator the Honourable Chris Evans, Philip Bullock and board members of the agency, fellow ISC chairs and board members of the ISCs, esteemed guests and delegates, good morning to you all and a very warm welcome. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to their elders past and present. It's my privilege this morning to provide a few opening remarks on behalf of the Industry Skills Councils and on an issue that goes to the very core of why ISCs exist, the future of work. By virtue of the numbers and variety of delegates here today, I think it's very clear that there's a real and genuine thirst to prepare for what's ahead, to lift our understanding of economic and technological change underway, which has transformed the way we live, the way we learn, and of course the way we work. The rules have changed. Factories that once needed 1,000 workers are now doing the same with 100. Today, just about any company can set up, hire staff from around the world and sell their products to wherever there's an internet connection. Microsensors combined with high-speed broadband mean that someone in Germany can alter settings on a production line in Whyalla instantly. China and India are educating their children earlier and for longer, with greater emphasis on maths and science. They're investing in research and new technologies. China is now the home to the world's fastest computer and boasts the world's largest private solar research facility. So yes, the world has changed. Hyperconnectivity, abundant knowledge, shortening supply chains and profound geopolitical shifts are carving out a new world for all of us, for you, for me, for our children and our grandchildren. It's a world in which inefficient business simply won't survive and unskilled workers will be marginalised. It has huge implications for Australia. We're already seeing firsthand some well-publicised changes in sectors such as manufacturing, health, energy, forestry, retail and finance. And there are just as profound shifts, arguably in a less public way, taking place in logistics, in agriculture and construction and of course in education. There really isn't a sector that's left untouched. Against this backdrop, we have some non-negotiable imperatives for business. We have to significantly improve productivity levels. We need to ensure that our operations are environmentally sustainable, and we have to manage the implications of an ageing workforce. I don't have to tell any of you that structural change is often fraught and complex, but history shows us that it tends to be overwhelmingly positive. It's the mechanism by which economies transform and deliver better living standards over the longer term. But let's not kid ourselves, we're in a tough place. We're also much better placed than most other economies. And let's face it, Australia consistently punches above its weight in business, in the quality of our products and services, in sport usually, and in the quality of our tertiary sector. Join all the dots and the common factor is us, Australian people, men and women who believe that in this country all things are possible, that a good education can overcome social disadvantage, that diversity is a strength, and that a good idea can become a great business. A key part of how we respond to what's ahead, and when I say we, I mean all of us, is to get a wide-ranging debate happening, conversation that invigorates keen minds and pushes conventional thinking. Today and tomorrow's program is part of that much-needed debate. When we started planning for this conference, the recurring phase was provocative, to make it unsettled, to challenge and to make people question themselves and others. And that's the brief we've given to our speakers over the next 2 days. We'll hear from inspirational Australian and international guests whose brief is to be thought-provoking, controversial and inspiring. You'll hear from some of Australia's most successful companies who are thriving in this uncharted environment and who see the national training system as a key component of their business strategy. You'll hear the views on the future shape of the workforce, keenly challenged and heavily debated. You'll also see and hear about some of the technologies and robotics set to redefine how we work and live. I'm reliably informed that we'll meet who, or more precisely what, is going to look after us in our twilight years. I'd like to encourage you to play an active role in the conference and join us on Twitter and to ask questions of our speakers. I'd also like to extend an invitation to you to make contact with the ISCs throughout the event and during the dinner and through the ISC booth. For those of you that aren't familiar with ISCs, we're industry-led, bipartite, not-for-profit organisations recognised and funded by the federal government to drive industry skills development and the workforce planning agenda. This includes development and maintenance of industry's training packages and nationally endorsed qualifications to meet the current and emerging skill needs of industry. Our intermediary role in the National Workforce Development Fund continues to deliver unparalleled level of co-investment by enterprises in upskilling their workforce. Our annual environmental scan, which you will find also at the ISC's joint booth, continues to serve as an early warning to the system and flag the factors shaping our respective industries, their skill development needs, and how well or not the tertiary sector is responding. Make no mistake that every ISC board member and CEO sitting here today comes with an unflinching passion for the challenge ahead. Before I step off stage, I'd like to extend my very heartfelt thank you on behalf of industry and the ISCs to Philip and his board and staff who have worked tirelessly to raise the profile and level of debate on workforce planning and development in Australia. Thank you, Philip. And on behalf of ISCs and the agency, may I just conclude by wishing you a truly inspiring and rewarding time over the next 2 days and to express a very sincere thank you for your attendance.